You did great. Thank you. Sacred Vocation is the title of this morning's sermon. Did you catch this passage? Did anybody read it and like, oh yeah, I like this? Or were most of you like, ooh, it's giving creepy revelation? I mean, we have seraphs and they have 6 wings. 2 of them covering their face and 2 of them covering their feet and 2 of them flying. What a funky text, right? I was reading it this week and I was like, how much fun is this going to be? Because if we're all being honest, when we read this passage at face value, right, we're kind of like, gloss over that. Oh, here I am, Lord, send me. That's a good verse. I'll pick that one. And those of us that are missionaries, we're like, yeah, that's it. I'd be hypocritical if I said that, I have not used that verse as a missionary traveling. But you read the first 7 verses of this passage and you're kind of like, what the heck is happening? So let's get a little context of what's happening in this passage for a moment. So Isaiah, the first 5 chapters of Isaiah are all about judgment. They're all about rebellion. They're rebellion of the people of God. They're rebellion of Israel. And it's all about judgment. And then this 6th chapter happens, and the 6th chapter is like this holy interruption with God and Isaiah, with God meeting Isaiah face to face and interrupting all that's happening and all that's going on of this judgment and rebellion type of people and culture that's going on. And the text begins with a pivotal moment. It says, the king Uzziah died. Now, Uzziah was a very prosperous king. He was a godly king. He was very good. He was leading the people in good ways up until he started to burn incense in the temple. And I guess that was a big no-no of the time. And so the Lord struck him with leprosy. But the first verse in this, saying that King Uzziah died, theologians have debated that either he physically died or it was the end of his reign, and there was a shift in leadership. And so there was even more chaos going on among people. I mean, does that sound like 2024? Like maybe a shift in leadership? Does it sound uneasy and chaotic? That's what's happening. That's the context of what's happening, is this great leadership is happening, and then there's some little controversial things happening within leadership, and then the leadership is gone. And so the people who are feeling already very rebellious are kind of like, whoa. And then Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, meets God. And God faces Isaiah and calls Isaiah by name. Not to take over in king, not to replace King Uzziah, not to rule and reign in that way, but to speak truth to the people, to prophesy among the people, to lead the people in this upright, righteous manner. God calls Isaiah. And the meeting between Isaiah and God is phenomenal and mind-blowing. And it sounds a little creepy to read. But if you'll use your mystic, creative imagination for a moment, can you imagine being Isaiah in that moment? Can you imagine seeing God, and apparently God's garment is the only thing that fills the entire temple, this huge temple, and the hem of the garment is the only thing that fills. And then there's this smoke filling the temple as well. Not like this little incense type of smoke, but this billowing type of smoke. The same type of smoke, if you recall, from the book of Exodus, when Moses and the Israelites stood at Mount Sinai, and the smoke, when they met the Lord, appeared. Oh, it gives this creative, detailed, elemental side of God's character, who God is and all of the masses, the magnitude of God. And then there's the creepy seraphs or seraphim, the ones that surround God in the moment. these angelic, but kind of creepy to our eyes, right? If you saw this creature with 6 wings flying around God, and then not only that, but taking a piece of coal, a burning coal from the altar and touching it onto Isaiah's lips, calling Isaiah by name. We read this and we get creeped out right away, right? We're like, okay, I'm just going to skip over this text and get to the good parts of Isaiah, the stuff that I can hold on to and make sense to me. But that's what's so beautiful about an ancient text like this, over 2,000 years old, predating Jesus by several hundred years. This encounter between the holy, holy, holy Lord Almighty and a human being. That is a sacred vocation. I think of my recent ordination ceremony and how sacred and wonderful and beautiful and absolutely perfect it was in every way. And I would trade all of that for this moment that Isaiah has with the Lord. How cool, how mind-blowing it must be to have that encounter. Yet, we do have those encounters. Maybe not at this type of magnitude with the Lord of hosts and the smoke and the garments and all the seraphs and all of this happening, but just take a look out the windows real quick. Do you see the new life? The greenery, the flowers, the blue sky, the clouds, the birds? And take a look outside and then put your hand on your heart for a moment. And take a few breaths. That beautiful beat, that pulse, the rhythm of life, that delicious breath that fills your lungs, that's sacred vocation. When we think of sacred vocation, vocation means some type of calling. It's often attributed to a job, a career. When we think of sacred vocation, we think, oh, it must be a minister or a priest or an elder or a deacon or one of those holy roles. But it can't be like a cashier or a barista or a burger flipper or a lawnmower or a caretaker. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No. I believe sacred vocation is the call to life. The call to life that God has already given each and every single one of us in our unique manners. God calls us to live, and to live in abundance of who we are right here and right now. So sure, it may not feel very sacred when you're serving your 17th latte to an angry customer, or you're flipping a burger and you burn the bun yet one more time, and you want to pull your hair out. That doesn't feel so sacred. But you know what is sacred? Looking someone in the eyes. Real quick, I want you to turn to someone around you and I want you to look in their eyes. Did that feel sacred? Some of you are like, no, that was very uncomfortable. Don't make me do that again. That is sacred. How sacred is it that we have the privilege to be alive right now? That we actually have this miraculous beat of our heart and this oxygen filling our lungs, that our bodies are moving today. That is a sacred vocation. You are called to live. And sure, it may not feel very sacred in some of your occupations or jobs, but you get to fill that space with all of your holiness. All of the holiness that the Spirit embodies within you, you get to show up. You get to be in that space. You get to honor life by simply just being the presence of one another, of serving one another. Whether it's helping somebody, supporting somebody, you are a sacred vocation simply by just being alive. There's a term that I want to say that people use, but I don't think people use this term anymore. But YOLO? Anybody heard YOLO? You only live once? Yeah. I only saw like 3 head nods, so I got a little nervous. Thanks, Molly. YOLO, you only live once. Well, the Christian church is often like, well, listen, there's eternity waiting for us, and there's salvation, so you don't only live once. That's a myth. I have a new term that I actually just thought of driving in today. It's called yo-yo. You're only you once. So whatever you believe about life, whatever you believe about eternity, whatever you believe about incarnation, whatever you believe about life, you are only you once. You only get the opportunity to be yourself one time in this life. How are you going to show up? How do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? Maybe you're in your later years of life and you're like, man, I regret being so grouchy and grumpy. I regret being such a perfectionist. Well, then change your ways. It's never too late to start again. The seasons of life around us, the new life that is blooming and blossoming out our very windows, reminds us that we can start again. The mercies come each and every morning. You are called to be a sacred embodiment of God's love. You are a sacred embodiment of God's light, of God's mercy, of God's justice in the world. It's never too late to recreate yourself. Or better yet, it's never too late to allow yourself to evolve into the favorite version of yourself. Because you are only you once. Yo-yo. Am I right? This month has unfortunately been filled with a few funeral services. One of which was already here. It was a member of Covenant, our dear beloved sister Dee, which we honored a few weeks ago. And I've had a few others outside of the church that I've done. And one of them was this woman. She was just shy of 99 years old. And she was an elementary school secretary. You might not think, oh, elementary school secretary is a sacred vocation. Oh, but the people that showed up at that funeral service, more than 50% of the people that were there were from the elementary school, whether they were former teachers, colleagues, former principals, students, parents. Because this woman not only showed up every day at that elementary school, serving the students, the teachers, and the principal, but she showed up fully herself. She recognized that it's a sacred vocation to live this life faithfully and abundantly. She showed up with baked goods when she felt like it. She invited people into her home for lasagna dinners on Monday night. She served her community with love, light, and compassion, and it was seen in the tears and the smile and laughter of the people attending that funeral service. And as devastating and as hard as it's been to do these funeral services, it's such a sacred reminder that this life is so short, so short. It's so fragile. There's devastations. There are so many tears and heartaches that happen. And there's so much celebration and joy. We can show up in every single capacity, whether we're full of devastation and grief, or we're full of joy and excitement. But we are called to live, and to live fully. God sees all of us, stands before all of us, brings a sacred burning coal of fire, if we're going to get Pentecostal, and touches our lips, saying, live, show up, no matter what you do, No matter what you're called to, whatever occupation you fill, whatever role you fill in the lives around you, be there fully. Dive into the depths with people around you. Hold space for those moments to become sacred. Because if you think about how short this life is, and you think about all the potential that is embodied within you, you can't help but shout with excitement that you get to be here. You get to be alive. You get to be who you want to be as God calls you. So, covenant, my friends. Yo-yo. You're only you once. Be the best version of yourself. Be the most sacred version of yourself in every arena, in every sanctuary, in every capacity in which you are allowed to. I'm going to tell a story as well. I did not ask for permission for this, so I ask for forgiveness. And just so you know, if I ever call you out in my sermons, the way I ask for forgiveness is I buy you a cup of coffee or lunch. So, Hawkinson family, I owe you guys some coffee or lunch on me sometime this summer. But Priscilla, Chad, and Molly, and they have Owen and Lucy as well, they've recently attended this church in the last several months, and they have dove in. They have come to this place and they say, this is sacred. Our jobs and our family life is sacred, and our church life is just as sacred. And Priscilla and Chad are part of our outreach team here. And our outreach team kind of focuses on our community and our capacity around us of what we can do, how we can be a better presence in the community. And you know, there's a preschool that meets in our basement. And so quickly, Priscilla's a preschool teacher, and so quickly we were like, let's bless them on their last day of school. And Priscilla was like, I got this. Let me get some goodie bags. Let me bless people. Let me bless the teachers, the students. That is a sacred vocation. Take away this high and holy mantle of what it means to have a sacred vocation, and realize that sacred vocation is life, and meeting people exactly where they are, and saying, I have a passion to give goodie bags and make people feel better, so I'm going to do that. And do that. Show up fully. Show up fully for your church, for your community, for your family, for God, but most importantly, show up for yourself. Because you, my friend, you deserve it. You are only the sacred, holy you once in this lifetime, and it's short and fragile, so live it to the fullest. Amen.